All right, folks, I think we're going to go ahead and get started. So hello, everyone, and thanks for joining us for this session. Before we get into it, I just want to make sure that everyone can hear us. We don't have mics today, so it's going to be a lot of projecting. If you are in the back and you can hear me, could you please raise your hand or give me a thumbs up? Perfect. Thank you so much. All right, so my name is Gifty Abraham, and I'm the Senior Training Executive at Cambridge University Press. We're so happy that you could join us for today's session on eTextbooks. Before I pass it off to our librarian panel, I'm just going to provide a couple of quick notes and an overview of the session, and then I'll introduce our librarian panel and what they'll be covering. So each of our librarians is going to speak for about 10 minutes, and we'll have some time at the end for Q&A in case you have any questions. So this session is pretty short. We won't have time to walk through the higher education website that houses the actual eTextbooks, but a lot of work has gone into that site to make sure that students have access at scale to high quality content. So I did just want to mention a couple of recent updates that we're excited about. So on the accessibility side, the site itself is now fully certified as WCAG 2.1. To that end, we've also got VPATs available on the site as well. If you haven't really spent much time on the site, and if you're unfamiliar with the e-reader, for new users, we've also added a short little tour that's going to walk you through the functionality when you first sign in. We've made some improvements to the approval process for instructor resources, as well as study level tags. So that's really intended to show the audience that a given resource is appropriate for. So it could be undergraduate, graduate, and so on. As well, if you visited the site recently, you may have also noticed a new improved mega menu layout. Again, we won't have time to kind of show you all of that today, but if you do have questions or you just want to look through it a bit on that, on the e-reader, or on anything else on the site, feel free to just pull me by afterwards after the session, and I'm happy to show you that as well. All right, so I'm joined today by our distinguished panel of 3 librarians. We've got Becky Imamoto, who's the Head of Collection Strategies at UC Irvine. Becky's going to be using an assessment report from the previous fiscal year on textbook purchases, and she'll be discussing student preferences. We're also joined by Heidi Schroeder. Heidi is sitting right here. She's the Accessibility Coordinator at Michigan State University Libraries. Heidi also has a secondary assignment on library textbook and course material initiatives, and she'll be speaking about different textbook and course material programs, including MSU's subscription to the Cambridge textbook package. And finally, we've got Lisa Resnick, who is the Associate Dean of Technical Services and Collection Development, as well as an Associate University Librarian at the USC Libraries. So her current role is varied. She oversees a number of departments, ranging from technical services to print management and collection development. And Lisa will be speaking about the challenges of textbooks in general, and just highlighting some of her institution's usage. All right, that's a lot of preamble, so I'm going to go ahead and hand it off to our first speaker, Heidi.
Great. Hello, everyone. Again, my name is Heidi Schroeder, and I'm the Accessibility Coordinator at the Michigan State University Libraries. I also have a secondary assignment in textbook initiatives. I want to apologize in advance because I have to leave this presentation early to get to the airport to fly home to Michigan. But if you have any questions at all and I'm not present for part of the Q&A, please feel free to reach out directly to me at hschroed@msu.edu. So today I'm going to talk about a few different textbook initiatives that we have at the MSU libraries, the promotion efforts we've kind of had around those, and a couple of the challenges that we've experienced. So my secondary assignment is new in the past year, and it's because we've had all of these different textbook and course materials programs in the library, and we wanted to bring them together in a way that really highlights the impact that we're having primarily on students, but we also wanted to be able to show our stakeholders, faculty, university administrators, donors, the impact in this area as well. We really view having textbooks at the libraries as a student success and affordability initiative. Several years back, we used to not collect textbooks really at all at the MSU libraries, and that philosophy has really changed, and we've really amped up our efforts. So we have a textbooks programs page, which is lib.msu.edu/textbooks/programs, and that goes over some of the programs I'm going to talk about today. So our biggest textbook program is our reserves program. And this is not a new program by any means, but we have done some things differently with reserves. Faculty requests for reserves still come in as they traditionally always have via email or our online form. But more recently, we have been identifying as a library MSU courses to add to our reserves program. So these are things that faculty haven't requested. And we've done this a couple different ways. We've been able to run material and enrollment lists from our registrar, and we're able to really look and focus on high enrollment courses at MSU, particularly for undergrads. And then we have proactively gone out and purchased those textbooks. Whenever we can, we're purchasing those electronically. However, a lot of textbooks still are only available in print for libraries to purchase. We've increased our reserves collection fund. It's grown exponentially over the last few years. And this has also taken out the need to involve a subject librarian. So when we get a request for something to go on reserves, either through our work at the libraries identifying additional courses or from a faculty for something that we don't have, our staff person who works on reserves is able to just purchase that immediately and not have to take the additional time to ask a subject librarian in political science, for example, and have all this back and forth. So last academic year, we had over 2,600 books for more than 1,000 courses on reserve, and more than half of these were electronic books. Because we think students understand textbooks more than the term course reserves, we've created this textbooks page and search, which is our reserve search, but it's different than our reserves page. So it uses the same search, but it comes up a lot more easily via Google and through just a textbook search on the library's website than our course reserves page does. So that's reserves. We also have some subject librarians who may not use reserves as much, but have been really active in getting materials for the curriculum and for courses in their areas. This is particularly true for our health sciences librarians. Our health sciences librarians for several years have been buying ebooks and materials from EBSCO, Elsevier, McGraw-Hill, and on and on and on. And we've also been really working hard to get language in our licenses to allow images for course packs for our medical colleges. Most of the time, our health sciences colleagues link to these materials directly from our learning management system. We use D2L at MSU, or through ebook textbook guides that they've created through LibGuides. The MSU Libraries also has a course materials program in the main library, and we produce print and electronic course packs. It's run through our Creative Solutions Center, which is right next to our copy and publishing services. So that team works really well together and across those units to create course packs. We, of course, rely heavily on library resources for these course packs, but we also have a copyright permissions program where we obtain copyright permissions when needed. So we also have a robust open educational resources, or OER, program. We have offered between 6 to 8 faculty OER awards since 2018, 2019, each semester. One thing we're really working on with our OER program is, with our OER librarian, is to try to get course marking into our student information system. So for those of you unfamiliar with course marking, it would be a way that students, when searching for courses, could search for classes that have 0 or very low textbook costs. So that's something we really are hoping to get off the ground, but it's complicated. And then we've also subscribed directly to textbook packages like Cambridge's textbook package. So this is a subscription for over 1,000 titles on the higher ed platform. And we've been subscribing to this for just over a year. And one thing we've done with those lists that we've created from the materials and enrollment is we've specifically taken out Cambridge titles that we've seen and then searched for those in the higher ed platform and then added those to the reserves system manually. We've done that for other publishers as well, where we know we just have really robust ebook collections. So a few stats on the Cambridge textbook package. We think it's gone pretty well over the last year. 180 titles have had at least one item request, so that's use. 11 titles have had over 100 total item requests over the last year, with the highest title having 1,626 item requests. 41 titles have had over 24 total item requests, so that's about 2 a month averaged, which we think is pretty good. And then there were only 34 titles that had just one total item request. So as I mentioned, part of my assignment is to really promote these efforts. Our first audience that we really want to promote to is obviously our students. So we have had a social media campaign. We have created the textbook search that I just showed you. We had textbook table tents all over the main library at the beginning of the semester with QR codes that would take them to the search page shown here. We also promoted directly to our subject librarians and reference librarians so that when they're helping students, they know how much we've been collecting in this area and can point them to textbook resources. We've had conversations with our student government, or AS, Associated Students of Michigan State University, about our OER program and all of the work that we're doing. And then we also had a really successful Find Your Textbook tabling event at the beginning of the semester. And it was primarily run by our head of reference and our peer research assistants. So these are students that our reference team has trained to provide some peer-to-peer research help to students at various spots around campus. But we talked with this team before they had the table and made sure they had the table tents and the QR codes for these pages as well. Promoting this to administrators and stakeholders has been a little bit more tricky, but we are trying to do that a little bit more. We have a university committee on the libraries. We're thinking that we might talk about textbooks at one of those meetings. And we're including things like this in our annual report, our statistics, to try to get that message across. Finally, to close on a few challenges, I don't think these will be new to a lot of you. The cost is definitely one of them, and MSU Libraries has been really lucky in that our budgets have not faced any significant cuts as of late, but we're worried that could be a case in the future. Textbook packages can be quite expensive, but again, we really see this as a student success and affordability initiative, and that takes a big priority. Textbook availability is another challenge. Some titles just aren't available for us to purchase electronically. In those cases, for high enrollment courses, we buy multiple copies of the print so that if it's a big class, we know we have several copies that can circulate from reserves. Working in reserves, the time crunch is a big issue for us. So even though faculty are supposed to input their textbook selections very far in advance, I'm hearing chuckles, that isn't always the case. And at MSU, it's particularly bad because there's a lot of faculty and instructor turnover very close to the start of the semester. So we have a very limited time to get everything on reserve so that it's findable. We only have one staff person who is able to enter everything into the reserve system. And we recently switched to Folio, and another challenge has been we used to be able to batch remove things, old items from reserve that we no longer wanted on reserve. With Folio, now we have to remove those one by one. So we currently have a lot of old reserve items in Folio or that are showing up because it's just so time intensive to get them out of the system. So that's a time crunch issue and also scalability. Usage statistics, so when you have a textbook package like the one through Cambridge, getting stats for those are pretty easy, but again, we have ebooks on reserve and in E2L from all different platforms. And it's hard to exactly know what the usage is related to a textbook versus what someone might be using it for research or just coming across it for their general interest. And it's just looking in a lot of different places. So the stats here, the 2,600 books for over 1,000 courses, that's just what we have on reserve over the past year. The numbers are actually much larger than that because, again, we're not putting everything on reserve. And then because I'm the accessibility coordinator, I will end with the challenge of accessibility. So it's always been an emphasis at the MSU libraries, but especially with Title II. one area that the libraries is focusing on this year is one of our Title II priorities for digital accessibility is any MSU libraries content that's used for or in MSU courses. So that includes obviously all of these electronic textbooks. So we have plans to really do even more accessibility evaluations and communication with textbook vendors. So I think that's all the time I have. And again, if you have any questions, please reach out to me, and I'm going to turn it over to Lisa. Sorry.
I'm not going to be showing anything. Hi, everyone. Hopefully you can all hear me. I'm Elisa Resnick. I'm from the University of Southern California Libraries. And I'm going to mention a couple of challenges, why we started the Cambridge subscription, and then how things are going. So I guess I'm starting out with a negative. I'll just say I cringe every time somebody asks us what our collection development policy is about textbooks. I'm a little opposite of Heidi. So officially we don't buy textbooks, but there's some caveats. So it's a gray area, and that's why I cringe. So what constitutes a textbook can also be a gray area. We definitely don't buy print textbooks, but if it's a standard sort of like reference work, it's not like an official textbook, that could be different. And then there are some exceptions made, mainly for the medical library, when faculty ask for course reserves for a textbook that might not be available as an ebook. And then we are an e-preferred library, meaning if it's available in e, that's what we're going to buy. So we'll generally purchase an ebook if it's available, even if it is a true textbook through Gobi. We obviously want to get an unlimited user license when available. If there is only a 1 or 3 user option, we'll generally communicate with the faculty to find out how many folks are in their course, and if a 1 or 3 user or multiples of those will work. Often, again, in medical, it will work because of the smaller class sizes. I have sort of an arbitrary limit on those that I use just for any ebook that's not unlimited, and that's generally 10 one-user copies if they're of a decent price. So not maybe 10 one-user if they're 500 one-user, or 3 users, so that comes out to 9. And I try not to go beyond that. We don't have too many that are like that. And then the other thing, I think both librarians and faculty don't often realize that a lot of the official textbooks are not available with an ebook license for academic libraries. It might be available for a single student to purchase them. And so there's a lot of challenges, especially with sort of last minute requests. We just got one recently, like, the class has something due on December 9th, and can you get this as an ebook? And I looked, and the publisher doesn't even sell an ebook version for the students. So there's no ebook version out there. Yeah. Oh, and I have another good example too of that sort of confusion. We had somebody, a USC author who was a faculty member, but authored a textbook, I believe it was with Wiley. And there was an ebook version, but only for an individual license. And I thought that maybe in the future we could maybe work with authors to help them negotiate if they know that they're authoring a textbook that they then want to use in their class, that perhaps those students could get tokens or something for at least, maybe not the whole university, but the classes for that person. And I think he was surprised that the library could not buy an ebook copy of his textbook that he authored. So Cambridge approached me, I believe in 2021, about their new textbook package, and that was during the pandemic. Classes were online, libraries were closed, and I just immediately said yes, because I was like, well, I know we need more stuff online. We worked with Cambridge and other things, and at the time I had funds available. I don't have funds available today, but that's another story. So we had a good deal. I can say my deal was 3 years, 0% increase. So that seemed like a good gamble to take. So our usage has been consistently good. I will call out some stats. Heidi has some better stats than me, but I'll call out some of ours. And then the interesting thing about the consistent usage is we don't do a good job of publicizing things. USC has a convoluted way of sending out all campus-wide messages, so basically the library, I guess, avoids that. So what I do from the campus development side is usually when there's something new, I send an email out to the library listserv, and then let the subject specialist sort of take it from there in communicating things out. So I did that sometime in August of 2021. I believe it's on our A to Z database list. And then we also have our head of our philosophy library has a newsletter called Research, Learning, and Teaching Series. And it could be once or twice a week she sends out emails that might be highlighting either a new collection or how to do something, how to use course reserves, for example. So she sent out an email on August 17th, 2021. As far as I can tell, that's been the only publicity. A week or two ago, to prepare for this talk, I did put a message on Slack to see if any subject librarians have answered questions about the Cambridge textbook collection, or if they have publicized it, and it's crickets, and nobody answered. I'm guessing that means nobody's done anything, but even with all of that, we have good usage. So, and all the titles are in the catalog as well. I just wanted to point out, we also have a full EBA package with Cambridge. We have Cambridge History Online and Cambridge Companions Online. So according to a report from Cambridge, our textbooks account for about 17% of USC's overall usage of Cambridge resources. And then I did something similar to Heidi. I looked at the titles that also had over 100 unique item requests for last year, and there was 12 of them that had more than 100. And the top 5, I won't read the titles, but was 551, 371, 314, 297, and 236. So that's pretty good usage, I think, for the textbook. Then I decided, I was like, what other stats could I share with you all? So last night I looked at, we have recently looked at all of our either EBA plans or all of our packages where we're buying the entire front list, and looked at some stats. And so I decided to look at the top 5 titles for all of those and add them together. And the Cambridge textbook top 5 come in at number 5, which again I think is really good because it's only a small collection versus other ones. And maybe just shout out to some other folks. Our number 1 was Oxford, then JSTOR, Elsevier, and then the rest of Cambridge, and then Cambridge textbook. So I thought that was kind of interesting. And those top 5 Cambridge textbooks came to 1,769 unique item requests. So those are some of my statty things. I think the last thing I wanted to mention is, although we're not actively trying to acquire textbooks for our users, I did just recently get called into a meeting with the bookstore, who it is a bookstore that's run or outsourced through Follett, and they're looking at some new options. And because of that meeting, I'm hoping we can sort of work together a little bit more to get some of those lists to see if we either already have the textbooks or we could acquire them easily. I think they thought they could kind of give their whole textbook operation over to us, but that wasn't going to happen. But I wouldn't mind trying to acquire more of them. I also have one member of my team who's on our open access OER committee, and I like having him there because I want him to remind those folks that it shouldn't just be the OA and the OER, but the stuff we own to sort of help promote that. So that's everything I have.
Right. Hi, everyone. So I'm Becky Imamoto at the University of California at Irvine, and I said I'll go last because my experience is slightly different from our other 2 speakers. We were similar, though, in that we didn't really have sort of any initiative to purchase textbooks before. Just, we might have some, we might not. And COVID happened, like everyone else, and we became aware of like a Cambridge leasing program, and there were some other ones as well that seemed to be making the rounds at the same time. So I did want to make sure we had a conversation about it in collection strategies. So it was kind of that philosophical, like, is this the library's place? Should we be subsidizing students' cost? Is our money better spent trying to help OERs get off the ground? And, really, is this sustainable? Ultimately, I was like, you know what? Our library building's closed. Students, for the most part, are not able to access any of our print collection. We had stopped buying print because there was no one there to process it. We were sitting on some money. The University of California was also out of contract with Elsevier for a little while, which gave us a significant amount of money. So I'm like, let's do this. Let's just do this as, of course, a pilot. I don't know if we can ever do anything new at the library without being called a pilot first. So that is what we decided. We would do a pilot. If we got requests from faculty for Cambridge titles that happened to be in the leasing program, we were going to go ahead and consider it. There were two others, I won't even name the presses because I'm not even sure if these programs exist, that we did consider. And if any of you have them, I'd actually be really curious to hear about it. But we decided not to move forward with them because they were a lot more high touch for the library. One of them was like a 4-month or a 12-month rental, and the library would receive a single use code to distribute to students, and we just did not want to be involved in that. Another one was 6-month rental, and you had to give them the exact number of students that were in the class, and then they would provide us with that number of access codes so that the students could download the book. But we did decide initially for Cambridge that we sort of arbitrarily were like, it has to have at least 50 students in the class, because then that way at least we feel like our money is going to help a greater number of students. And so that's how we did it for the first couple of years. So unlike MSU and USC, we did not subscribe to the entire Cambridge collection. We just picked the specific titles that were requested, like through the normal reserve process. So there were 3 of them. I don't even have to go, need to know the titles, I guess, at this point. But for those 3 titles, at most it's been about 4 years since we've had them. Our usage has been phenomenal on them because they have been used every year as a course textbook. So one book in 4 years has had like 2,372 total item requests. And then it goes up. The highest one actually in 2 years, so this is has had 9,135 total item requests. So it came out to like a cost per use of 41 cents. So actually we were very happy with this pilot. And then Stephanie, our wonderful Cambridge rep, came to visit a little while ago and had lots to share and pointed out that we have other classes that are using Cambridge textbooks that we didn't know about, which of course is slightly embarrassing, but happens because faculty sometimes don't involve the library and let us know. So we have, we're leasing some additional ones this year. And because of our past such high use and low cost per use, I said, you know what, it doesn't have to have 50 students. Let's just go down to like 25 or something. That would hit most of our classes anyway. This is obviously doing something to help students, and that's what we want to do at this moment. So we have started that. This fall is just the beginning of it, so I don't have any information about it. But we are actually now at the point where we could probably just subscribe and be paying almost the exact same amount of money that we are for the books that individual books we're leasing. We did not do it just because I'm guessing many of you in the room are the same boat. Serials money is a different allocation than our one-time monographic one, and we are in a serials cut, so it just didn't seem like a good idea to make that switch. Faculty don't always use the same textbook, even with the list that Stephanie provided. There were some that the faculty had left, or whatever. So we're like, okay, we know these ones are happening. I track all the courses that we know about and their enrollment size, and I calculate potential cost savings. So this is we know these classes, and I can include them. And if we just had the subscription, we might not know exactly which classes are using it. So that's for Cambridge, and I believe, I still have about 4 minutes. So just in generally for course textbooks, I did mention I try to track every monograph or streaming film, I throw those into, that we're aware of that's being used in a class. We have lots of unknowns, I'm sure you're right. We know books are being used that we aren't aware of, but it's just the ones that we get through reserves or a subject librarian lets us know that we're able to track. So in fiscal year 23-24, we provided, or I tracked 440 textbooks, and that's print or e. So she's had to leave, Heidi. MSU having 2,600, I was like, wow, it's amazing. It would probably take up all my time actually though to then look at all the data about those. But that was for about 197 classes, which had an enrollment of over 18,000 students. I mean, one student could be obviously multiple classes, but we just counting the enrollment size. So we felt like we were hitting a vast majority of our student population on that. Specifically, you don't have to. The numbers, though, of looking at our usage of what we provided in print versus what we provided in ebooks is just, it was mind-boggling extreme to me. 344 of those titles, we had print books. This is last year, so I can't even say COVID or anything. 381 checkouts, so just a little over one checkout per book. Ebooks, we had 192. 27,535 total edit requests. And like Heidi said, that's not even all the ebooks, because some of them were open access, some of them didn't have title level ability. So anyway, that was overall. For 110 titles that we actually had both the same exact title as e and print to really do a comparison, it was 12,725 online views versus 107 checkouts. So for us at Irvine, this is really, hard data that our students are not coming to the library to check out our print reserves. They are using our online ones. Faculty might still put in, when they're filling out the reserve request, print, they can select which one they want. We will still buy the E, even if they pick print. But, oh, sorry, that's my timer. I will be very quick on that. It's Harry Potter theme thing. For us, though, of course, we want to now be as preferred as possible. E was only offered in 42.7% of the requested titles that we reviewed. Print was still for a little bit more than half, the only option. And those E ones included the less desirable models of the 1-user or 3-user as well. In terms of money, this is not cheap. Overall, we did spend about $29,000 on 169 titles. And that is about $172 per title. And that was mostly because of the E version and having to get multiple copies of things and having that discussion with the faculty about, do we think how many copies are going to work? And so it is something that we had to commit to, but just overall, it's in the UC system, it's moving towards really wanting to provide as much accessibility and equity for our students, and this seems important. So we have taken this money off of the top of the budget, and we're prepared to continue doing it for the time being. So that is what I have to say. Thank you very much.